It's time for a chat with Pat.
Yes, and today our guest is Patrick O'Hearn. He's a husband, father, holds a master's degree in education from Franciscan University, and he has authored or co-authored 12 books. And if I give you all of those, we will have no time to talk with him. He is the director of ministry expansion at Stewardship, a Mission of Faith. And you can also visit his website at patrickohearn.com. Welcome, Patrick. Welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Hey, I love this article. The article is from Catholic Exchange, and it's called Love at First Sight, Lessons from the Saints. So I find this very interesting because I work with young people, and I do things in parishes. And, you start with this whole concept of a young woman who says, I just cannot find a good man. I want to get married and raise a family. This seems to be such a common a statement, especially from women. Why do you think it is so hard for women, especially who want to start, and they're time limited in starting a family, that they want to get married and have a family? Why is it so hard?
I mean, there's a number of reasons, and I'm actually going to do a follow-up article because I had a gentleman reach out to me because I focus mostly on the men in this regard because,
yes,
I would say a virtuous lady, we know that she has to wait, like Our Lady, you're just waiting and praying, and, you're not called to go pursue the man, something's disordered, and so there's this, you're waiting, you're praying, and so I think that part comes from the fact that men, as men, we need to step to the plate. We inscribed in our bodies is being the initiator. And so I think as men, and so in this article, I challenge the men to just to go pursue the woman, to not be afraid. And then I will do a follow-up article on toxic femininity, which is, the other thing is that a lot of women we're seeing in articles, they don't want to, get, some women want their careers over their families. So that's the other role. But again, it's just this patience that they need to have. And it's tough. It's really tough. I see so many beautiful women. I've spoken at different conferences or retreats that they're in their late 30s and just gorgeous women. And I kind of go up to them. I'm like, how come you're not married? And they go, there's just no men coming after us. So that's one of the huge problems.
And I think part of that, too, is certainly what has happened in our society, that men have, we throw out that term misogynist so often, that if they do, they're almost, I think, a lot of times afraid to initiate because it's like, well, they think I'm, coming on too strong. Is this going to be an issue? So there's so much, I think, coming at young men today that it makes them kind of be afraid and back off. And you mentioned that in your article, but I want to get to kind of the heart of your article, and that is what the saints can help us understand, because you give two kind of couples in your article. One couple that have been declared saints, others that are on another that is on the path. And I think it gives us this insight that there's not just one way to find your beloved. So can you talk to us about these two couples?
Yeah, I was blessed in one of my books, Courtship of the Saints. I go in through all these different stories. But Saint Gianna Molla, I was able to interview her daughter, and she was talking about her parents and just, the fact that her parents met on two occasions before they were actually, seriously met. And there wasn't like love at first sight. It was a very quick exchanges. And then later, a few years later, it just became clear that, it actually happened I didn't mention in the article, but at a priest,
right.
His first mass, they met each other and their eyes kind of, they at that moment, they were kind of like knew something was special. And the other was a guy, his name is Venerable Vittorio Transinelli. He's from Italy. He adopted all these children, and he was kind of, I would say he had love at first sight with his wife Rosalia, but she wasn't too attracted to him at first. And then when she went deeper, she saw this man's virtue. And I think it's a lesson for us, because we often associate we should be attracted to our spouse. It's very important, but it's more the icing on the cake. You go deeper into the virtue. And I think that for our young men and women in this culture, especially with pornography, looks become everything. That's all that, and And again, Fulton Sheen just brings us back to this reality. That's the icing on the cake. Let's go deeper to virtue.
And I think you're right. I think, if you take the time to get to know someone, if they're for you, you will just fall deeper in love with them because you see their soul. You see who they really are, and not just, like you said, the icing on the cake, the outer package. And I think that is so important. And of course, the two saints so you kind of give us this example, right? That these people, they knew each other, but it wasn't a love at first sight. But then you also give us an example of love at first sight. Can you give us an idea about that?
Yes. So that was two of my probably my favorite saints, Louis and Zélie Martin, the parents of Saint Therese. And they happened to be walking on a bridge, and Zélie heard an interior voice. She had a locution, and I think it was actually the voice of Our Lady. And it said, that voice said, "This is he whom I've chosen for you." And as they looked at each other's eyes, they were walking on this famous bridge of St. Leonard. And that was, then later on, Louis kind of, after that point, he went to go pursue her in person. And actually his mother had met Zélie at a lace making class, and she kind of had been praying that they would meet to each other. So I think it's really important as parents to always pray for your children. So you never know when that moment's going to happen. So again, this beautiful example, they were in a state of grace. And going back to your early question, I do think a lot of the times it's like the less faith we have in our society, the less marriages we're going to have. So I think when we see couples that are, going to Mass, going to the sacraments frequently, they're setting themselves up to meet their spouse.
I love that, because that's kind of the last thing I want you to kind of focus on and help us with here. So looking at these lives of these couples that you bring forward in your article, and just your general understanding of all of this, what do you think can be helpful for young people if they're believing that they are being called to marriage? What can be helpful to them?
Yeah, I think it's like you put yourself, we have this other thing, right? Avoid the near occasion of sin, but I say also put yourself in the occasion of graces. And so put yourself, go to a different, if you're at a church where it's a lot of older people, go like maybe go to a daily Mass at a parish, a different, 20 minutes away or 10 minutes away, where, maybe there is some younger adult Catholics. Get involved in your young adult Catholic groups in your diocese. There's conferences. I know Franciscan University has conferences. So go to these places where there's going to be other holy, like-minded people. And I've had a few friends that have gone on Catholic Match, some of these places, and have met their spouse. There's nothing wrong with that as well. But again, just trying to. No, I would also say to curb your expectations. Often, it takes time. It really does. Not everyone gets married in their 20s, but just really again have that strong prayer life. Be rooted in the Lord and let God lead you to your spouse.
Yeah, and I think that is so true, Patrick, because so often we're looking for the perfect person. And we have to understand we're not perfect. So that should give us the grace that you're talking about to open our hearts to who the Lord puts in front of us to see if this is the one. And I would encourage people to go to PatrickO'Hearn.com. Find out more about Patrick, what he's doing. He's involved in many things, so go there and find that out. He has husband, father, holds a master's degree in ed from Franciscan University. Prolific author. I want to read some of these books and have you back on. Thanks for being with us, Patrick.
Thanks so much. God bless you guys.